Greetings, audience. So we're here today. I mean, like, well endowed in Christmas spirit, and we got the lights and everything. And so a couple of weeks ago, me and Sachin here we were discussing films, and he was like, "Hey, you said."
Well, basically, what happened was that we were just talking, and something came up in the conversation, and I mentioned a scene from the movie Sorcerer.
Men condemned by their past, robbed of their future, trapped in a life that was also a death. 4 men take an incredible chance, face an impossible challenge, and risk the only thing they have left to lose.
And it's a
1977.
1977.
Yeah. 7th film, and you came back with.
Oh, yeah, I basically said, hold on, I've seen something very similar to that when I was a kid, and it's a 1953 film called Wages of Fear.
Une simple goutte de ce liquide Quatre hommes vont jouer leur vie au volant de ces camions.
A bunch of people get stuck in a place, and the only way to get out of it is to drive these trucks full of nitroglycerin. Nitroglycerin, yes.
It's that dangerous he can't even speak about it.
Exactly, any kind of vibration sets off nitroglycerin. It's for those of you who don't know,
it's very old-fashioned, this kind of technology, let's call it.
They've had nitroglycerin first, and then Alfred Nobel, if I'm not wrong, made it stable by fusing it with something and creating dynamite. Basically, the whole premise of this film can be told in like a couple of sentences, and I'll probably say it in more than a couple. But the American petrol company, the oil well explodes. There's a fire they cannot put out because oil wells, once they start burning, like there's only a few methods you can use to stop the fire. Explosives, or there was in Kuwait they used
Iceman.
They used a tank body with airplane jets on top of it to put out an oil well fire. And so anyways, in this film they have to go and get the explosives, and they find out the explosives are bad because everyone is incompetent in this film. Everything is going to shit. So they just basically they get these explosives, and they carefully take them to the trucks, and then the trucks have to. So because it's so dangerous, they pay so much, but people are desperate to do it because they want to get out of this.
What's the amount in the 70s version? I'm curious.
$10,000.
This is $10,000.
But it's weird. I think they start with 8,000 something, some Colombian money, and then in the end of the movie it's 10. And because
they earned it, but in the 50s version it was $2,000.
Yeah.
So inflation.
They have a helicopter in the 70s version, and they're basically saying, why don't you use a helicopter to transport this material?
Yeah.
And the pilot says, no, there's too much vibration. Why don't you put in a pallet underneath? Still, too much lateral. Actually, they give a really good explanation, kudos for that. But like this truck, oh my goodness, it's like rocking left to right, going over this crappy road. I think that's the worst idea that they had to actually transport this, explosives via trucks.
They had this scene in the 50s version where they have to go over a particular road at a certain speed.
Exactly, that one makes sense. Over
did
here,
they do that in the 70s?
They don't. They kind of don't make it obvious that they don't tell the drivers look, you gotta drive slower. Oh, by the way, YouTube, if you're watching this, please don't delete this video. This video is not about explosives or how nitroglycerin works or how to make dynamite. It is not about that. It's just two dudes talking about totally unrelated movies.
Do you really think that this will be potentially flagged in some way?
I don't know. I mean,
Because
it would be dumb if it was.
It would be very, especially if we put up like a
Right.
big title discussing Wages of Fear. And
So, what did you think? Comparing the 50s version to the 70s one, what was your, opinion on that? What was good? What was bad? What worked? What didn't?
well,
Things like that.
the first impression is that you start off, because I knew, having seen the Sorcerer, the thing that I can remember is that it starts off in New York, I think, in the 70s. Obviously 70s New York, and the main characters are given a bit of a backstory, and then they make their way to the village or whatever that place is, somewhere in South America, I think. But the 50s one, it just starts there, and it's so setting up the locale. You really feel the desolate nature of it. It feels hot. It feels dusty.
How does it compare to the desolate nature of the same village in the 1977?
Well, I don't know. I can't remember. You need to tell me about it.
They basically went in there and just picked up garbage and built this for the movie set. But what it really is, it says how people lived in South America in the 70s. It's like everything is fucking dirty. There's one airplane landing in the middle of the movie, if you remember. And I haven't seen a filthier aircraft. It was like white color, but you couldn't tell that. And like even like the fancy petrol company helicopter, it was dirty as well. People are filthy. Everyone's everyone's fucking sweating all the time. Mind you, at the end of the movie, when the money comes through, the guy gets a suit, and suddenly things are slightly cleaner. So I don't know if that was the director trying to make a point how when you got money, everything can be clean. You know?
Everything's a bit brighter and shinier.
Detergent doesn't exist, when you have a medium to low income.
Here's a bit of trivia from IMDb.
Right.
They were meant to film the 50s one in Spain, and Yves Montand, the main star of the film, protested that he was not going to film in any country where Franco was president, or whatever the hell.
Oh, well done, Yves
so
Montand.
And that's one of the reasons why they stayed in France.
Yeah,
but they
Yves
were meant to shoot
Montand,
in Spain.
Yves Montand, am I pronouncing it right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's a very famous French actor from the 50s, and also a singer.
Yes,
he had albums.
He was a singer before. This was his first dramatic role.
He had Christmas music, probably, which we might play some of it now. Okay, cool. That's obviously we haven't heard it. We're just gonna splice it in.
Yeah, exactly.
Later, but the viewers can enjoy music. He's got a very warm voice. He was in some nice films. And there was one called Manon of the Spring.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent film. Yeah, you should watch it. It's very slow. It's very French.
Well,
true to
this
life,
gentleman has already introduced me to a classic, which I thank you very much for.
Roy Scheider, the main actor. Scheider.
Yeah.
So it's not Rob Schneider, it's Roy Scheider. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So he was in Jaws, by the way. You might not know that film.
Yes. More than one mention of sort of like anti-female sentiment in the 50s version, but maybe that's just the misogyny of the 50s seeping through.
In the 70s version, the grand conclusion of what they're gonna do with the money was, yes, let's get some prostitutes. And then when they say, ooh, let's get a prostitute that's expensive, like, let's get some whores, most expensive whores.
Fun fact, which is something obviously I didn't actually pick up on this. Unfortunately, I read it in the trivia.
Mm-hmm.
But this film happens to have two characters called Mario and Luigi.
Shit,
way before Nintendo had anything to do with us. The Luigi character in this film looks more like Mario, which is.
Does he not wear a green hat?
No, he doesn't. No, he does. Well, actually, I can't tell. It's black and white. It might be a green hat.
Oh, okay.
It might be a red hat, which is even better.
Sweet.
And both of those colors are like good for black and white.
Did it have a letter L on top?
No.
No. Okay, fine.
No. First of all, from the get-go, what I noticed just from a filmmaking perspective is the editing. The editing felt like a modern film. It was quick. Like really, and shitloads of different cuts, shitloads of different setups. And I was just thinking, okay, so he had to do this, now he's moving the camera here, now he's looking through this. That was really impressive. The setting up the town at the beginning, It was amazing. Like from just a storytelling point of view, how much he draws you in with all the selling you on the detail of the place. That was really cool. And also later on, I made some notes. For example, the oil scene, when, again, spoilers, in the 50s version, when one of the trucks ends up exploding, and it sort of happens off screen, and they get to the point of the road where there was just nothing. There was this tree line is completely blown out, and there's this gigantic crater into which, because they're going next to the pipeline, they're following the pipeline to the place where it's exploded. The pipeline ruptured as a result of the explosion, and all this crude oil is just flowing into this hole, and obviously that creates the obstacle that they have to drive through it, and it's fairly deep. It's about probably knee deep, I think. At some point it keeps filling up. And I was just, when that scene came up, I was like, oh, is this really crude oil? And I read again in the trivia, they actually got them to go into crude oil, and they both of the actors, I forget the name of the guy who plays his partner, because both of those but there's 4 guys, right, in the Sorcerer. There's 4 guys in these 2 groups, the 2 partners. They both had conjunctivitis as a result of swimming in crude oil. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I suppose, health and safety, environmental protection.
Yes, 1950s. Authentic. Top scores for authenticness. Authenticness? Is that a word? Authenticity. But, yeah, Jesus. Things were different.
They had like a song, and I didn't know what song this was. It was a classical song, and it was in Royal Tenenbaums. Wes Anderson film, Royal Tenenbaums.
Okay.
I think. Yeah, I was like, okay, so maybe Wes saw this, and maybe he nicked some of his stuff from there. The aesthetic, and then after that was basically the scene when they're driving. Oh my god! I mean, like they come up to this hanging bridge, which is swaying. There's a flood going underneath, carrying, and there's also like this crazy storm, like crazy rest. And I think like they wouldn't walk over it. Next thing you know, they're crossing it with a truck, and I have no idea how they filmed this. Because it looks real. It looks like a huge ass truck going over this crappy bridge that's about to fall apart.
Yeah. If you know the filmmaker William Friedkin and where his background comes from, he used to do documentaries before, but he also has been known to push his actors to.
Suicide?
Maybe. Well, he was also kind of on The Exorcist. He notoriously told one of the grips they had like a rig around one of the actresses, the main actress, to kind of pull her back as if the poltergeist is doing something to. And he said, "Just yank her, boys." And they did. And she actually kind of hit her. I think she hit her head. And it looks authentic.
Health and safety. It was
so
amazing in the 70s.
Yeah. Because as you described the scenes, it brought back some memories of it, but I do remember it looking fairly gnarly and intense, which I would say there are scenes in the 50s one that are like that. The oil scene, for example, because it was real.
Yeah.
That's where you go, maybe likewise it probably was real. How else do you capture that? I mean,
I thought some of the songs in the film were like, wow, this sounds like electronic music in 1977. And I was like, okay, this sounds great. And then, lo and behold, in the titles at the end of the movie, it was like, it's Tangerine Dream. For those of you who don't know, who is Tangerine Dream?
Well, Tangerine Dream is a German group. It's a music group, essentially. Call it a band, which had a stint in the sort of 70s and 80s of doing film scores, electronic film scores. Exactly. Before it was before people were doing electronic film scores. In the 70s version, how did they kill off the first?
Right. It's actually a really cool one. They basically escaped the danger and they just like driving the truck casually, the French guy, and his partner,
Mhm.
and the French guy starts talking about a watch his wife gave him. He has this watch, which is engraved, and he goes like, "Oh look, this is actually this was a pretty cool moment in the movie." He goes like, "Oh look, it's 5 to 9 in Paris," and next thing you know, the tire of the truck blows, and they just go into the ravine, and boom, and that's it.
That's how they did it.
Yeah. And then really this truck just gets blown to shit. Like you see truck parts flying everywhere. I don't know. That was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, the in the 50s version, they you show a scene. It was Luigi, and I can't remember. It was a German guy who's his partner, and he's shaving. And because
in
he's
the
like,
truck when
he's
they're
shaving,
driving.
they're shaving in the truck,
Oh.
and because he makes a joke about like, oh, drive carefully, I don't want to cut myself or something.
Right.
And he essentially explains to the guy, if, they all realize it's a suicide mission because Luigi himself is dying from concrete in the lungs. Nice detail.
Jesus.
So he's gone on a suicide mission. Doesn't matter. And the German guy says he wants to be presentable. At least I guess as a corpse.
Oh,
and
God.
soon after that, you don't see it. You hear it first, and you see a gigantic, just a plume of smoke. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so the 70s
So-
version is a bit cooler than that.
Yeah.
Like it's
You-
5 to 9 in
You're
Paris.
getting the raw edge of the 70s, full on. Plus it's William Friedkin, so I would say it probably scores points in that respect. There is one thing that I actually thought probably is the single most kind of annoying thing I found about the film, just how it was handled, which is the ending of the 50s film. Because you can sort of see it being telegraphed, but when the guy finally makes it on his own, because his partner, the one that he ran over, dies in the truck pretty much right towards the end, just as they reach the fire. So he collapses out of exhaustion. Completely understandable. That's great. And he collapses with the raging fire in the background. That's an amazing shot. And I wonder if Sam Mendes perhaps did an homage in his Jarhead film with burning oil fields. But that all looks really amazing and authentic. But when he starts the next day, he's all cleaned up and he's really jolly. Like, more so than I would ever expect somebody who's just been through what he's been through to be that ecstatic about it. And then he starts driving like a lunatic on his way back.
So, in conclusion, would you recommend this film to people, the 50s version? Would you go like, you gotta watch this is awesome?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I can see why. I mean, it is a famous film. Weirdly, that I have not seen for 40 years.
It was a famous book. It was made on a famous book.
Of course. But obviously, films popularize everything. There's a greater chance that people would have seen this film rather than read the book. So yeah, absolutely recommend it. It feels modern for a lot of its time. Let's say, a bit 50s about its attitude towards women and some other sort of minor little details. But otherwise, very, very good.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I would definitely not recommend this to anybody. I'd be like, don't watch this shit. If somebody came up to me and says, should I watch this film? I'd be like, no, watch the 50s version and maybe download the soundtrack of the 70s one, maybe.
Ooh, not
Because
bad. Not bad.
yeah, I mean, Tangerine Dream, whatever. So
Maybe
yeah.
they should play the soundtrack of the 70s one over the vision of the 50s one. That would be interesting if they would sync up in any way. If you're into all of this stuff and all this stuff,
whatever that
then we wish you a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See ya.
Bye.